Hands. This has kicked me off a couple of times already, but we'll see how we do. Um, it's Sunday morning. I hope you're up getting ready for church. Maybe you can listen to this while you ladies paint your face and while you men shave. Or maybe you're having that second cup of coffee and scrolling through your phone. I don't know. Or fourth cup of coffee. you know, I'm a big fan of what we call Baptist gasoline. I made a decision a long time ago that whatever happens next, I want to be awake to see it. Boy, that'll tighten your clutch. Now, we're in Isaiah chapter 28. We began that yesterday. It's a fascinating chapter. First, he is prophesying against the northern house of Israel, the northern kingdom, whose capital was Samaria, due to the civil war around 1000 BC after the death of Solomon. Uh, they split into two kingdoms, Judah with the capital of Jerusalem in the south, Israel with the capital of Samaria in the north. To prevent confusion, they have always called themselves, and Judah has, especially Judah, and the prophets had called the northern kingdom Ephraim or Jacob, as well as Israel. This is a prophecy against Ephraim, which I believe was after the Assyrians started to oppress them, but before the fall of Samaria. I read you yesterday from the book of 2 Kings in chapter 17, the historical background of this, where first the king of Israel, he paid a tribute, tried to bribe the king of Assyria not to conquer Israel. Then he got tired of paying that fee after about 7 or 8 years, and then he tried to make an alliance with Egypt, and Egypt got beat and turned around and went home. So then, after that, Assyria would invade and carry away captive all of Israel and destroy and burn Samaria, their capital, finally in 732 BC. Although this deportation, by some accounts, went on for another 8 or 10 years until they actually carried away all the inhabitants of Israel and replaced them with people from Persia, Media, um, Elam, Babylon, all other kinds of places that they were replaced, even some of the lands of the Hittites in the northern Asia Minor, parts of modern Turkey. And but that hadn't happened yet as we're making this prophecy. So Isaiah is railing against the wickedness of the northern kingdom. Now he will turn and rain judgment and prophesy against Judah just as well in the last half of this chapter. But in the beginning, he is just talking about Ephraim. Isaiah is. And if you want to study the Assyrian captivity, you can find it in 2 Kings chapter 17. I read it to you yesterday. I'm not going to read it again, but sometimes when we study, we have to read some things several times before we understand what's going on. I would also refer you to, this is partially accounted in chapter 28 of 2 Chronicles. Okay, chapter 28 of the book of the prophet Isaiah. Verse 1, this is where we were yesterday. We covered the first 4 verses. Verse 1, woe to the crown of pride, to the drunkards of Ephraim, to the drunkards of Ozark. Oh, that's where I live. It doesn't say Ozark, it says Ephraim. Ah, woe to the crown of pride, to the drunkards of Ephraim, whose glorious beauty is a fading flower. They were the children of the Lord, people of God, chosen, delivered out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage, out of the fiery furnace of bondage, slavery, brought through the wilderness, brought into the promised land, given an inheritance among the people of God. But then pride overcame them, and Judah too. They had a civil war and they split. The northern kingdom was always larger, had a bigger army, usually a 3 times bigger army than Judah did. But one thing that Judah had that Ephraim did not have in the end was the blessing of God. Because at the time he destroyed Samaria, there were enough godly people left in Jerusalem that God decided not to destroy it. And that's the whole deal about Rabshakeh that we find in 2 Kings chapters 18 through 19. And we'll cover them again here in Isaiah, I believe, beginning in chapter 36. I'm not sure. Yes. Charlie, God bless you. And Travis. Travis is back on Facebook. Lovely. Good morning, Travis. So their glorious beauty has now become a fading flower because they didn't trust in the Lord. They trusted in Egypt. They trusted in their prosperity, as I explained to you yesterday. They were very prosperous, which is why their ruling class had the time to sit around and be drunk. It's because they were prospering so well along the trade routes and shipping. So they were neglecting God. They didn't want to hear about God. Woe to the crown of pride, to the drunkards of Ephraim, whose glorious beauty is a fading flower, which are on the heads of the fat valleys of them that are overcome with wine. Behold, the Lord hath a mighty and strong one, which as a tempest of hail. We'll pray for your back, Travis. Hope it gets to feeling better. Behold, the Lord hath a mighty and strong one, which as a tempest of hail in a destroying storm, as a flood of mighty waters overflowing, shall cast down to the earth with the hand. Now that is God using Assyria to judge Samaria, the northern kingdom. Ephraim, the crown of pride, the drunkards of Ephraim, as if there were no, wasn't clear yet. We have both the people and the wine, the pride and the drunkenness. And what that leads to, it leads to hubris and not taking care of business. That was the name of Elvis's band, the TCB band, the Taking Care of Business band. The crown of pride, the drunkards of Ephraim shall be trodden under feet. And the glorious beauty, which is at the head of the fat valley, shall be the fading flower. This refers back to verse 1. And as a hasty fruit before the summer, which when he that looketh upon it seeth, while it is yet in his hand, he eateth it up. Some things I'd like to share. We all know and have read and have internalized the Proverbs at one time or another. Proverbs chapter 20, verse 1. Wine is a mocker. Strong drink is raging. And whosoever is deceived thereby is not wise. Proverbs 20. And look at in chapter 23, Proverbs 23, many things in there talking about women, and whores, and fake friends, and all the things that a man can get involved with when he's away from the Lord. But we come back to wine again in verse 29, chapter 23. Who hath woe? Good morning, Millie, my old friend from Sam Houston High School. Who hath woe? Who hath sorrow? Who hath contentions? Who hath babbling? Who hath wounds without cause? Who hath redness of eyes? They that tarry long at the wine, they that go to seek mixed wine. Look not thou upon the wine when it is red, when it giveth its color in the cup, when it moveth itself aright. Boy, it looks good. You know, I was drunk, and there's nothing I wanted more than the darkness of a bar and the cold drink in my hand. The iciness of the gin as it takes away all the pain and the memory and the misery. Yeah. Dry martini on the rocks, and don't even bring the vermouth in the same room. Yes, I was a drunkard. Yes, I preach about these things and how wicked it is. Most people who drink are not like me. They can just drink and go on. I can't. But I will say this from 20 years of drunkenness, that I never knew anybody who didn't get drunk sooner or later. And so if your argument is drinking isn't a sin, but drunkenness is, sooner or later you'll sin. But I'm using this drinking since I have so much experience in it. I'm looking at this drinking because that is what the prophecy is about. They have failed because of their pride in Ephraim and because they sit too long at the wine. They're drunkards. The prophecy is to the drunkards of Ephraim, the ruling class. Sometimes I think that's what's going on in this country, because I'm wondering how, it's hard to believe that anybody but a bunch of drunks would make these kind of decisions. But, I understand there's a lot of teetotalers in the government. I don't know. You couldn't prove it by behavior. They that tarry, it says, who has woe, who hath sorrow, who hath contentions, who hath babbling, who hath wounds without cause, who hath redness of eyes? Heidi, God bless you, Heidi, the mother-in-law of our dear Khalees, the mother of the good Jacob, who is a Detroit Lions fan and therefore not altogether to be trusted. No, he's a good boy. He's a good boy. Yeah, Charlie, God delivered me all right. But that doesn't mean I don't remember. And since we're talking about this in relation to the prophecy to the drunkards of Ephraim, I have a lot of knowledge about that. Look not upon the wine when it is red, when it giveth its color in the cup, when it moveth aright. At the last it biteth like a serpent, and stingeth like an adder. Good morning, Teresa. Thine eyes shall behold strange women, and thine heart shall utter perverse things. That's true. God delivered me from that. Christ changed me. And I imagine just about everybody that's watching this, Christ has changed you too. I see Miss Heidi at one of the facilities that Dr. Adrian and I go to regularly. And she sings every song we sing. And she does the signing too. She's a great sister in the Lord. Thine eyes shall behold strange women, and thine heart shall utter perverse things. Yea, thou shalt be as he that lieth down in the midst of the sea, or as he that lieth upon the top of a mast. You know, you go in dangerous places. Ephraim, at the time Isaiah wrote to them, was in a very, very dangerous place. They were pride to the point where they believed that nothing could touch them because of their great prosperity and their wealth. And they believed that they were beyond silly things like wars, because they could just pay off all the bandit kings. And at the same time, they were drunk because they didn't care. In their leisure, in all of their spare time and their idleness, they turned to drink. The ruling class did. Think this. The Great Gatsby, written by Scott Fitzgerald, where he says the rich are different. Stephen King had a great corollary to that. He said, yes, the rich can have more creative nervous breakdowns, which I always thought was clever. But he wrote about the idle, wealthy class during the 20s, before the Depression, after the First War, and how all they did was just excess and mad parties, and everything was go, go, go. That's what the flapper age was about. That's what it was all about. People who never drank before, they were all drinking because it was exciting, because of the was it the Homestead Act? Can't remember exactly what it was. The Homestead Act, I think that's it. Anyway, it made prohibition against alcohol from, I think, 1920 through 1932 or 33, whenever Roosevelt came into office. They got rid of it, and they all had a drink. But that's like they were here, like in The Great Gatsby. The calm before the storm, where the idle rich, the ruling class, thought about nothing but pleasure, sin, fornication, drunkenness. That was their life, because they had time to do it, plenty of money to do it with, and believed that tomorrow would be just like the day, and that there would be no tab. You know, we live our lives saying, put it on the tab, put it on the tab. Well, sooner or later, you have to settle up with the barkeep or the hotel or whatever it is. You got to pay the tab. I mean, God bless the tab. I've been in situations where churches or conferences have had me, you want breakfast, put it on the tab. You want a cheeseburger in your room, put it on the tab. You want a pot of coffee at 11 o'clock at night, put it on the tab. All hail the tab. The tab is a wonderful thing, as long as somebody else is paying for it, right? You could even take your extra pair of shoes, and if you're in a nice hotel, and set them out. And your extra suit, you set them out and have them cleaned, and they'd be back the next morning. Yes, we're thankful and grateful for the tab. But see, that's what these people were doing. They were living on the tab. They were putting everything on the tab. Sooner or later, you got to pay the fiddler. And the fiddler ain't me, even though I'm the fiddler. The fiddler's the Lord. God doesn't settle all accounts when you check out of your hotel and go on to the next one. No, but he does settle all accounts, and he does it on his schedule. Yea, thou shalt be as he that lieth down in the midst of the sea, or as he that lieth upon the top of a mast. You wake up in weird places. I've been in situations where my last memory, I was in Nashville, Tennessee, and I'd wake up and be in Vegas. Or start off somewhere drunk in a car. Thank God I didn't kill anybody. God was moving people out of my way. And then wake up in a cornfield, looking back behind me and seeing a hole in the fence. And I'm thinking, man, I got to get out of here before somebody discovers me here. They'll make me pay for the fence. And that was my greatest thought at the time, was not having to pay for the fence. Thank God I don't have to live that way anymore. Thank God that I've been sober for how long now? 28 years and some months. But I never forget. I know I'm forgiven, but I never forget. I remember how much damage I could have done to other people, but God somehow prevented it from happening, to preserve me to this day. I'll never know why, but he did. Yea, thou shalt be as he that lieth down in the midst of a sea, or as he that lieth on the top of a mast. They have stricken me, shalt thou say, and I was not sick. They have beaten me, and I felt it not. When shall I awake? I will seek it yet again. See, that's the thing about it is, when you're a drunk, you got to drink as soon as you wake up so that you won't get completely sober, because if you wait too long between drunks, it'll hurt too bad. When I awake, I'll seek it again. I never laid down without a beer on the nightstand or on the floor, wherever I was, so that as soon as my eyes open, I could pop that top and drink it down and be able to see through the fog. This was the state of the people that we're talking about in Ephraim. They were blinded by their own prosperity, as Satan was blinded by his own beauty. It corrupted him. Prosperity corrupts you. You think you can have money without working. You think it'll go on forever. You think that tomorrow will be the same as today. Verse 5, chapter 28 of Isaiah. In that day shall the Lord of hosts be for a crown of glory, when all the drunks and all the wicked people have been dispelled and defeated, carried off into captivity. He's talking about another time. He's talking about a time when the people will be regathered, a remnant. We know that that happens finally. It happened for the first time at the end of the 19th century and culminated in the formation of the nation of Israel, May 14, 1948. But its final culmination will happen at the end of the Great Tribulation, when Jesus gathers together the remnant to establish his kingdom here on the earth for 1,000 years, where we and they shall rule, where we shall rule as kings and priests and serve our God. This is the time that Isaiah is talking about. And I believe he's saying this partly for Judah's benefit, because Judah at the time believed that Ephraim, Israel, was lost, and that they could not be revived. But Isaiah is saying that they will be. Although nobody standing there in front of him that day would be alive to see it, but it would come. Verse 5, in that day shall the Lord of hosts be for a crown of glory, and for a diadem of beauty unto the residue of his people, the remnant. Verse 6, and for a spirit of judgment to him that sitteth in judgment, and for strength to them that turn the battle to the gate. Now, what he's saying here is that there will be judges that will come and be able to do right judgment instead of perverse judgment. They will be able to give strength to those that in the battle. There'll be good leaders, there'll be good generals, there'll be good kings, but not now. But they will come. Verse 7, and here's the key still. Remember, this prophecy is to the drunkards of Ephraim. But we can take heart and we can learn from this, because these lessons are bitter and hard to learn always. But they also have erred through wine, and through strong drink are out of the way. We would have to include, my pothead friends. I got a lot of friends that used to be drunks, but they think they're not drunks anymore, but they think it's okay to smoke pot. I don't get into these discussions with people, but the New Testament instructs us to be filled with the Holy Ghost and not with wine. We don't need to have our mind altered. You don't need to be stoned. You don't need to be high. You don't need to be drunk. It's an offense to God. He doesn't like it. But I know that I will lose that battle, because see, my generation, what the war didn't get, we were destroyed by sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So I have no place to talk. You all know I was a drunk for 20 years. Well, I thought everything was just fine, but apparently God did not. And thank God he didn't think everything was just fine. Verse 7, but they also have erred through wine, and through strong drink are out of the way. The priest and the prophet have erred through strong drink. I didn't inhale. And then sometimes we get a president who doesn't drink at all, and we wish we had a drunk. We don't do politics on this show. And the priests and the prophets have erred through strong drink. The priests and the prophets, they are swallowed up of wine. See, that's what happens. You swallow the wine, and eventually the wine swallows you up, and then you go get the bottle until the bottle comes and gets you. That's how it works. The devil is very subtle. The devil glories in every drunk, in every shot of smack, in every snort of cocaine. I don't know a lot about a lot of the drugs because I ain't done nothing so long. So what I know about crack and about methamphetamines, what I know about that, I just know from watching TV and talking to people who've dealt with it, you know. No, in my day, it was a lot simpler. We didn't have as many artificial drugs and opiates and stuff back then. Although opium was always a big ticket item. They're out of the way through strong drink. They're swallowed up of wine. They are out of the way through strong drink. They err in vision. They stumble in judgment. See, when you're screwed up, man, you can't think straight. You can't worship God right. You can't judge right. You can't take care of your business right. I was what they call a functioning alcoholic until the day that I couldn't function anymore. And then I was just sick. I had to be delivered by the power of the blood that Jesus shed upon the cross at Calvary. He delivered me from that, and I never gone back. He saved me. He delivered me. He gave me a new life. He wrote me a new name. He made me a new creature. However you want to. Well, sometimes, sister, it's just as bad to watch somebody go through it as it is to go through it yourself. It's worse in a way because you don't care what's happening to yourself, but you do sometimes care about other people around you. Because I didn't care much about anything else when I was drunk. But I'm using that as an example because I understand what God is saying here. You're just not yourself. You can't do right. and Hosea is another prophecy against Ephraim by someone who lived there. It's talking about the sinful people and how they've turned away from God. In verse 1 of chapter 4 of Hosea, it says, "Hear the word of the Lord, ye children of Israel, for the Lord hath a controversy with the inhabitants of the land, because there is no truth." Why? Because everybody's drunk or high, and they judge perverted judgment because of those things. That's what the prophecy to the drunkards of Ephraim in Isaiah is about. Hosea lived before Isaiah, and he's writing the same things Isaiah wrote 50 years before Isaiah wrote them. By swearing and lying and killing and stealing and committing adultery, they break out, and blood toucheth blood. Therefore shall the land mourn, and every one that dwelleth therein shall languish, with the beasts of the field, with the fowls of heaven, yea, the fishes of the sea also shall be taken away. Don't take away that prosperity. You won't have it anymore, God says. And let no man strive, yet let no man strive nor reprove another, for thy people are as they that strive with the priest. Therefore shalt thou fall in the day, and the prophet also shall fall with thee in the night, and I will destroy thy mother. And what this means is the prophets who are drunk, the prophets who lead you astray, I'm going to destroy them too, right along with the drunkard, right along with the fornicator. Because why? They're lying prophets. They're false prophets. Why are the three reasons that God destroys a covenant nation? They go a whoring after other gods. They sacrifice their children. They believe the lies of false prophets. My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Verse 6, chapter 4 of Hosea. Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee. In other words, you know what to do, you're just not doing it. That thou shalt be no more a priest to me, seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy God, I will also forget thy children. They were increased, so they sinned against me, their prosperity again. Therefore will I change their glory into shame. They eat up the sin of my people, they set their heart on their iniquity. And there shall be like people, like priests. I will punish them for their ways and reward them for their doings. For they shall eat and not have enough. See, when you're sinning, it's never enough. You got to find new ways to sin. Just like when you're on drugs, you're always in search of that first high that you had, and you never get it again. You just take more and different drugs, and they always leave you needing more because you can't get it the way it was the first time again. Same thing with booze. You go chasing after the first time when it was so wonderful, and you never find it again. See, that is the trap of the devil. It's the pleasures of sin for a season. You know, you see this gal and you run off, you leave your wife and your business and move off and run off with another gal and start another family. And you think everything is going to be great, and you're just as miserable as you could be, because sin is only a pleasure for a season. And then you realize that you sinned against God, you sinned against your wife, you sinned against your children, you even sinned against the woman you ran off with. All because of the desire for drugs, drink, or none of those. Lust. You thought it would be a good idea to do it. Well, buddy, it ain't a good idea. It always bites like a snake at the end. Sin builds you up. And then by the time you realize that it's wrong and you shouldn't have done it, well, then you're neck deep in it and it's hard to get out. For they shall eat and not have enough. They shall commit whoredom and shall not increase, because they have left off to take heed of the Lord. Whoredom and wine and new wine take away the heart. That is pertinent to this study of the prophecy to the drunkards of Ephraim. Verse 7, remember, but they also have erred through wine, through strong drink. They're out of the way. They stumble in judgment. Their vision is dark. They can't tell what to do. They can't see what to do. It's just too much. They can't handle it. Now, Ezekiel addresses this the deepest, especially as it applies to religion, because he's addressing this to the priests and the prophets, the lying prophets. Remember, why did judgment come? They went a whoring after other gods. They sacrificed their children. They believed the lies of false prophets. Chapter 13, Ezekiel. Ezekiel's writing this in the 590s BC. He's already been taken away captive to Babylon from Judah. He was a priest, and he was one of the ones carried away in the first deportation, probably also with Daniel, who was of the seed royal, a prince. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, chapter 13, beginning in verse 1, Son of man, prophesy against the prophets of Israel that prophesy, and say unto them that prophesy out of their own hearts, Hear ye the word of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord God, Woe unto the foolish prophets, the crazy preachers. Now, people will say I'm crazy And people say I'm a preacher, but they usually don't call me a crazy preacher because the things I preach are not crazy. I guess that could be the case if I started talking crazy, but I would not tell you a thing if it were not true. Say unto them that prophesy out of their own hearts, hear ye the word of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord, woe unto the foolish prophets that follow their own spirit and have seen nothing. I had a dream from the Lord. When they didn't, they just make it up for the TV show or whatever. The Lord told me. Did he? Well, if he did, great. But if he didn't, you're a liar and a thief and a cheat. And God will deal with you. O Israel, thy prophets are like foxes in the desert. They're foxy, all right. Ye have not gone up into the gaps, neither made the hedge for the house of Israel to stand in the battle in the day of the Lord. They have seen vanity and lying divination, saying, the Lord saith, and the Lord hath not sent them. And they have made others to hope that they would confirm the word. Have ye not seen a vain vision, and have spoken a lying divination, whereas ye say, the Lord saith it, albeit I have not spoken. That's the greatest way to take the name of the Lord in vain. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. What is that, the third commandment? But whatever it is, it doesn't mean asking God to damn somebody. The worst way you can take the name of the Lord in vain is to say that he said something and he didn't, or that he did something and he didn't, or that he doesn't do something and he does. I mean, that's blasphemy against the Lord. That's taking his name in vain. It's giving him credit for things he didn't do and denying him credit for the things he did. The Lord said, I didn't say nothing. Therefore, thus saith the Lord God, because you have spoken vanity and seen lies, therefore, behold, I'm against you, saith the Lord God. Mine hand shall be upon the prophets that see vanity and that divine lies. They shall not be in the assembly of my people, neither shall they be written in the writing of the house of Israel, neither shall they enter into the land of Israel, yet shall know that I am the Lord God. Because they have seduced my people, saying, peace, and there was no peace. And one built up a wall, and lo, others daubed it with untempered mortar. See, the lies always fall apart like a badly built house. Say unto them that daub it with untempered mortar that it shall fall. There shall be an overflowing shower, and ye, O great hailstones, shall fall, and a stormy wind shall rend it. The end of verse 7, they're gone out of the way through strong drink. They err in vision. They stumble in judgment. A priest or a prophet, a false prophet you become a false prophet by saying things that God didn't say. Then you have a dream in your drunken stupor. Or, maybe you're having a bad acid trip. Don't ever take acid. You'll never get over it. I had a hard time in the 70s. Just don't do it, ever. Anyway, if you have a dream and you're a preacher, a prophet, you've gotten drunk, well, that dream came out of the jug, man. It didn't come from God. That's why it is such a violent sin for the priest or the prophet to be given over to drink. You should never do it. You should never do it at all. Liquor should never touch your lips. Lips that have touched liquor shall never touch mine. Balderdash. Yeah. The thing is that this is written, this part of this prophecy to the drunkards of Ephraim is written to the priests and prophets because they're the people, they're the men that the people listen to. The priest was supposed to represent man to God through sacrifice, through temple service, through prayers. The prophet was supposed to represent God to man. Hey guys, God said this is what we ought to do. I'm a prophet in the main sense that I tell you what God has said. I represent God to man. I represent God to you. I'm saying he says this here, and we're talking about it right now and trying to figure out what it means. But this is a direct indictment of the priest and the prophet who cannot do their job because they're drunk. Now, granted, there are other ways to be drunk. You can be drunk on pride. You can be drunk on money. You can be drunk on lust. You can be drunk on gold and silver, finances, the economy. You can be drunk on your wealth. You can be drunk on greed. You can be drunk on revenge. You can be drunk on a lot of things. And I believe this covers it all, even though he's talking about wine. And we'll read that verse again, then I will let you go because we need to get ready to go to church. I mean, we're ready to go, but we need to get out the door. But they also have erred through wine and through strong drink are out of the way. The priest and the prophet have erred through strong drink. They are swallowed up of wine. They are out of the way through strong drink. They err in vision. They stumble in judgment. The most earthy takeaway from this is that, you lay down with dogs, you're going to get up with fleas. If you drink, you're going to see crookedly, asleep or awake. And then when you awake, you're going to give bad judgment because the booze has corrupted not only your mind, but your body and your soul. Well, that's enough for today. I hope you have a great time at church. My Catholic friends, if you hadn't been to Mass, get up and go. I'm not a Catholic, but I know a lot of saved Catholics. And one thing you learn in a Catholic church that you don't learn anywhere else is reverence. You go in there and you shut up until it's your turn to say something. I kind of like that. I think maybe we could do with a little more reverence in our churches instead of the free-for-alls that most of us have. I love all you people. Thanks for coming to me this morning and listening. Be sure to go to church. God be with you.